is Tim. My partner Matt and I are Stein Custom Designs. Today I'm going to show you, we've had a lot of questions on how to cut out our visors, our back vents, and the neck part of our helmets. We normally ship them with these on there, mainly because in the beginning when we were shipping, we would cut these off and we had a couple come back to us that were crushed. So to keep that from happening, we leave the necks on and you guys cut these off. They're very simple to do, and how we start that off is I take a sharpened pencil and I start off by just outlining right at the cut area on the bottom, just like this, and also in the visor area. I do the same thing, and I go all the way around. And the back vent area, I go from the edge out to about close to 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch on the sides, depending on what vent you purchased. And that way I can apply glue to these areas and glue it right to those areas. That way also when you sand out the backs of the vents, you have slits here that you can actually, air will travel in and out. So the tools I use my X-Acto saw. Some people will use a Dremel tool with the cutoff wheels. I don't use those. Too many things can go wrong very quickly. I also use X-Acto as these little saws, and you purchase these on Amazon, and you'll need small files, possibly a large rasp style file with a flat edge and a rounded edge. It's got two different, the more rough rasp file section and a finer section for smoothing out. You're obviously going to need sandpaper, 80 grit and 150 grit. Doesn't really matter the brand. You use your sandpaper that you like. Gluing, I use Zap-A-Gap with Zip Kicker. For any kind of patchwork or whatever, for the quick stuff, I just use Bondo quick glazing putty. And for the more permanent, I use Evercoat. And this is a two-part. You have a hardener and you have the glaze. You mix these two together. You don't need very much hardener when you're doing this. Normally, if you have a round glob of the Bondo or the glaze, just put a nice little dot on top of it, mix it up, spread it out. Another trick with that glaze, when you're putting it on a helmet, make sure that the area wherever you're filling is sanded very well. Otherwise, when you go to sand the glaze, it's just going to keep popping off. You must sand that, and usually what I recommend is that you primer the whole helmet before you start fixing areas, because then you'll get a nice bite. The primer that I use is this, and I use it on all my 3D filed parts and all of my resin cast parts, because it's very true to what it says, high build primer surfacer. This stuff is awesome. It's expensive, but it's awesome. I use no other primer. That is all I use. If I'm not shooting it out of my gun, I'm shooting it out of this can. So, first, we take the saw and we gently score the area that we are going to cut out. Once you get a nice line and you're in about maybe 1 or 2 mil, then you can start going back and forth slowly and surely. Now, the material we use is really rough or rigid and tough, but it is soft and it will score very easily. You don't have to work it, you don't have to press hard. You're not going to get through it on your first pass. You have to do many passes if you want a nice clean line. But if you're using a rotary tool and you're grinding that sucker on, you're not going to get a nice line. You have a lot of after work with sandpaper or files. So you get the nice line going, you get a nice thing, you get through, you're good to go. It ends up looking like that. You got the neck off, you got the T-visor out, okay? You'll notice that there's little areas that need to be cleaned up, and the thickness through here so that the visor will lay on in here needs to be cleaned up. So that's where the files come in handy, the sandpaper comes in handy. When you're doing your back vent, what I do, like I told you, I cut to a certain point so I have something to glue to. I take my step drill, you can use like a 1/4-inch drill bit, and I drill holes right in the corner on each one. You can go center here if you don't want to cut so high. Just don't go past that line you've created. Then I take my little saw, my little X-Acto saw, and I go in those holes, and that's how I start my cut lines. Once you have that square cut out or rectangular area cut out, you take your files, you file those edges, you fit your vent, see if you need to go a little more, and you just keep filing it until you get where you like it. Attach the glue, slap it on, you're good to go. People that aren't, that don't have the courage to use a CA glue, because it's pretty much bonds instantly, especially when you use kicker. I recommend this. This is what I use. If I want something where I can move it around, and you don't need a lot of it, you just mix it 1-to-1, mix it up just like Bondo, and you goop it on and stick it on and let it dry. It take about, I'm gonna say 15 minutes to where it'll be nice and hard and where you can actually work with it. So, and it won't come off. So that's an option. But that's pretty much how you cut all the areas and the vent. So I want to thank you for purchasing one of our helmets, and I'll put our Etsy shop up, and I'll try to put some of these items that I use in the comments, or in the comment section. So I want to thank you again, and have a great one.